Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. My name is Mara. I'm 36. And I'm not sure when exactly I stopped being in love with my husband, only that it crept in slowly, like water leaking through a ceiling. Quiet. Unnoticed. Until one day you're standing ankle-deep in a room you swore would never flood. The guilt is hard to admit out loud, so I'll just say it plainly here, to you. I think I made a mistake. I think I settled. And now I'm watching my friend teeter on the edge of the same cliff I jumped off 10 years ago, smiling like she's ready to fly. The part that's hardest? My husband, Sam, heard me say it. Not the whole thing. Just enough. Just enough to go quiet in the way only someone who's been hurt and is trying not to show it can go quiet. I hadn't meant for him to hear. I was talking to Jules. She's a whirlwind, she makes you say things you don't plan to say. She told me she was thinking of saying yes to a proposal from a man who made sense. Steady, kind, boring. I told her not to. I told her, don't do what I did. And Sam was walking in from the garden. I didn't hear the door. Didn't see the way he froze in the hallway, or how long he stood there before coming in like he hadn't heard a word. Now he's been playing the part of the heartbroken husband. He doesn't fight. He doesn't ask. But his silence is louder than any screaming would be. Every kiss on the cheek lingers just a little too long. Like he's saying, see? I'm still here. Every brush of his hand on my back is a question. Do you still feel anything when I do this? I don't. Not really. But it wasn't always like this. When Sam and I met, I remember feeling like I could breathe deeper around him. He had this calming gravity. He'd lean in when I talked, not because he was trying to impress me, but because he really wanted to know. We used to dance in the kitchen. Make out like teenagers. And sex? It wasn't wild, but it was tender. Honest. That kind of nakedness that made you feel seen. But over the years, something shifted. I don't think either of us meant to let it happen. Life just gathered. Schedules, responsibilities, routines. The couch became our regular spot. The same side of the bed. The same 2 positions, once a week, if that. Now, when he kisses me, I kiss him back because I don't want to hurt him. Not because I want to. I still hold his hand in public, but it feels more like a habit than a craving. The other night he came up behind me while I was brushing my teeth. Wrapped his arms around my waist like he used to. I smiled in the mirror, but it felt stiff. Performed. His face pressed into my shoulder and I wanted so badly to want it. Instead, I felt cornered. Like I needed an excuse to gently pull away. Sometimes he puts his hand on my thigh when we're watching a movie, and I freeze. Not out of fear. Just because I know where it's leading, and I don't know how to fake being hungry anymore. What hurts most is that he's still trying. And I've run out of energy to pretend I don't feel empty. The moment I knew something had changed was stupid, small. I'd just gotten a new haircut, shorter, a little edgier than usual. I came home, expecting him not to notice, because he usually doesn't. But he did. He turned from the sink, smiled softly, and said, "You look beautiful, babe." He kissed my forehead. And I wanted to cry. Not because it wasn't sweet. But because I felt nothing. Not a flutter. Not a warmth. Just this dull ache in my chest, like I was standing next to someone else's husband, living in someone else's life. That was the moment. Not a fight. Not a betrayal. Just a forehead kiss that used to make me melt, and now made me want to run. And the worst part? I think he knows. Sam is a middle school history teacher. He wears faded corduroy jackets and carries around a leather-bound notebook filled with quotes from Thoreau and stray thoughts he doesn't want to forget. The kind of man who writes birthday cards in actual paragraphs. Thoughtful. Consistent. Dependable. And somehow, all of that has started to suffocate me. He gets home around 4 most days, earlier than me. I'm in marketing for a tech startup, always juggling projects and deadlines, always plugged in. Some days I come home and he's already lit a candle, made dinner, poured wine. That would have thrilled me once. Now, I walk through the door and brace myself, because I know what's coming next. Tonight, it's pasta and roasted eggplant, and he's playing that damn Gregory Alan Isakov playlist he thinks is romantic. I can already feel the weight of his affection before he even stands up from the couch. "Hey, beautiful," he says, kissing my cheek, his palm warm on the small of my back. I murmur thanks and slide out of his reach, pretending I need to check my email. But the thing is, it's not that I don't want to be touched. I just want to feel known first. Felt. Heard. Not handled. But Sam shows love through his body. Through brushing my hair behind my ear, through rubbing my feet without asking, through curling his body around mine in bed like I'm something soft and precious. And maybe I used to be. Maybe I used to feel precious. But now, every time he touches me, I feel the growing canyon between us. His hand on my back doesn't close the gap. It only points out how wide it's become. Last week, I told him I needed a little space, just a long bath, no talking, no anything. He brought me a glass of wine anyway. Left it on the edge of the tub with a note, "Take all the space you need. I love you anyway." It was sweet. It was too much. It made me cry. Because I know what he's doing. He's performing patience. And under that patience is fear. And under that fear is love that he doesn't know how to express in any other language than touch. Tonight, after dinner, we sit on the couch, and he pulls me in. My body stiffens for a second before I settle, because I'm trying to be fair. I'm trying not to punish him for loving me the only way he knows how. He smells like aftershave and oregano. His lips press to my temple. And then his hand drifts, slowly, under the hem of my shirt. I freeze. Not because I don't love him, but because the moment feels like pressure. Like obligation. We haven't talked. Not really. Not about us. Not since he overheard me. And I don't want sex to be a shortcut to closeness we haven't earned. I want to feel chosen again, not just married. I gently take his hand and hold it still. Not rejecting him, exactly. Just pausing. He pulls away like I've slapped him. "I'm sorry," he says too quickly. "I didn't mean to push. I just thought you wanted me to try more. I want you to talk to me, Sam." "I am talking to you." "No, you're touching me." "That's different." He sighs and leans back. "So what then? You don't want me to touch you. You don't want me to stop trying. What do you want, Mara?" His voice isn't angry. It's defeated. Tired. And I can't even answer him, because I don't know anymore. I just know I feel invisible in a marriage where I'm constantly being held. Later, I find him in the kitchen doing the dishes. His back is to me, and he doesn't turn when I walk in. The silence feels colder now, not performative like before. Just real. "I feel like I'm disappearing," I whisper. He turns, slowly. His eyes are wet. And I feel like I'm holding on to smoke. It's a strange comfort, knowing he feels it too. And somehow, that only makes it harder. It started with a laundry basket. I was folding socks on the bed, half watching a reel on my phone. Sam walked in from the shower, towel slung low, still damp. He grinned, came up behind me, and smacked my ass like it was some shared joke we'd always had. I jumped. Not out of surprise, I'd felt him coming. but because inside, something twisted tight, like I'd been interrupted in the middle of breathing. "Don't," I snapped, sharper than I meant. He froze mid-laugh. "Sorry. I thought you liked when I'm folding laundry, Sam. Can we not?" He held up his hands like I was the unreasonable one, then turned and walked into the closet. The moment passed, but it didn't pass. It hung there, thick and sour, until I couldn't remember what reel I'd even been watching. We've been stuck in this awful loop lately, him trying, me flinching. And the more he tries, the more I withdraw, and the more I withdraw, the more desperate his efforts become. It's not fair to him, but it's not fair to me either. Later that night, we were in bed. I had one leg outside the blanket, my version of compromise when I don't want to be touched but don't want to make a scene. Sam was scrolling on his tablet. He put it down and turned toward me. "Hey," he said, soft, reaching over to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered along my cheek, and I closed my eyes out of reflex, not desire. He leaned in, kissed me slowly. His hand slid down my arm, thumb brushing the inside of my wrist, that tender place he knows makes me melt. Only, I didn't melt. I waited. I counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. I kissed him back because that's what I was supposed to do. But inside, I felt numb. Like I was watching us from outside my own body. He moved closer, letting his hand rest on my hip, a cue, an opening, and my stomach turned in that horrible, guilt-ridden way it does when your body won't cooperate with your heart. I pulled back and pretended to yawn. "I'm really tired," I mumbled, already turning over. "Sorry." There was a long silence behind me. Then, "It's fine," he said, his voice low, unreadable. He didn't touch me the rest of the night. But I couldn't sleep. I stared at the wall, heart hammering, even though nothing happened. That was the problem. Nothing happened, and that felt like a betrayal. What's wrong with me? He's loving. He's gentle. He's still here, even after what he heard me say. And yet every time he reaches for me, I feel like I'm being asked to step into a skin that no longer fits. He used to turn me on with just a look. Just brushing my arm in the kitchen would send me spinning. And now I can't get through a kiss without overthinking it to death. I miss wanting him. I miss being touched and feeling warmth instead of pressure. And I hate myself for the way I recoil, not because I don't care about him, but because I do. That's the cruelty of it. This love isn't dead. It's just silent. Like a house you remember laughing in, now echoing with every footstep. I still want closeness. I still want something. But every time he touches me, my mind skips ahead, reading the unspoken agenda in every lingering caress. And I want to scream. Not at him. At the silence between us that's grown teeth. Why does everything have to turn into sex? We were out at dinner. Sam had insisted, "Let's have a night just us," he said, like a bandage could cover a broken bone. We hadn't been to this Italian place in months, and everything about it felt too familiar. The bread basket we always finished before the drinks came, the waiter who used to call me Bella, the table near the back where we once kissed so hungrily the server cleared her throat twice before we noticed. Now, we sat across from each other, the candle between us flickering like it wasn't sure if it should stay lit. I wasn't in the mood. I'd had a long day. My chest was tight with stress, and my head buzzed with work emails I hadn't answered. But I'd said yes, because I knew he was trying. He always is. He poured me wine. Ordered my favorite pasta without asking, which used to be sweet, but now feels like being predicted. Like I don't get to choose anymore. "You've barely touched your food," he said gently, halfway through his plate. "I'm not that hungry," I muttered. Sam paused, then leaned in a little. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Mara." I looked up. His eyes were warm. Kind. Maybe too kind. You've been somewhere else for weeks. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm trying, I know you're trying, Sam, I snapped, louder than I meant. A couple at the next table glanced over. I lowered my voice, face hot. You're always trying. It's like you're trying at me. He blinked. What does that even mean? It means, my throat tightened, and suddenly I hated the candle, the pasta, the whole performance of this night. It means I don't need another romantic dinner or foot rub or I love you anyway note stuck to the fridge. I need to not feel like I'm drowning in your effort. The silence hit hard. He set his fork down. Slowly. Deliberately. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were stunned, like I'd struck him across the face. I thought you wanted effort, he said, barely above a whisper. I thought that's what partners do when things get hard. They show up. I don't need you to show up with another playlist or more touch, I said, biting back tears. I need you to see me. I need to stop feeling like a project you're trying to fix with affection. He stared at me for a long time. Then he leaned back in his chair, nodding to himself like he'd finally heard what I really meant. That's what you meant when you told Jules not to settle, he said. I froze. He looked up at the ceiling, shaking his head. You weren't talking about her. You were talking about us. There it was. Out in the open. The thing we'd both been pretending hadn't happened. I looked down at my napkin, my fingers gripping it so tightly the cloth trembled. You weren't supposed to hear that, I whispered. But I did, he said, voice tight. And I've been trying to pretend I didn't. Because I thought maybe I could love you hard enough to make you forget you said it. I felt the tears fall before I could stop them. I covered my face with my hands like a child. I didn't want to cry here. Not in public. Not like this. But it all broke open, the guilt, the exhaustion, the slow drip grief of wanting something else but not knowing what it was. I don't know what's wrong with me, I choked out. I love you, Sam. But I feel empty. And I don't know how to fill it anymore. I feel like I'm watching my life happen through a window. He didn't touch me. Didn't try to hold my hand or wipe my tears. Just sat there, breathing, his face pale and still. When we got home, I went straight to the bathroom. I locked the door, slid down against it, and sat on the cold tile floor with my head in my hands. I'd told myself I was keeping it all inside to protect him. But the truth was, I'd been protecting myself, from the shame of knowing I might be the one unraveling everything. And now, it was out. All of it. And all I could think was, God, what if I can't put it back together? It's been 3 weeks since the dinner. 3 weeks since my meltdown, since Sam looked at me like he didn't recognize the woman sitting across from him. We haven't really spoken since. Not beyond the necessary logistics, groceries, laundry. Did you feed the cat? I've never heard so many doors close so quietly. Not slammed. Just softly shut. He still sleeps beside me. Still brushes his teeth while I floss. Still makes coffee in the morning and leaves mine on the counter without a word. We're living in a house where everything's still functioning, but nothing's alive. It's my fault. And I don't mean that in the self-flagellating way I used to say it in therapy, just to get the guilt out of my chest. I mean it quietly, soberly. I cut him with my words. And instead of bleeding, he went silent. I catch him sometimes, looking out the window while the kettle boils, jaw clenched. Or sitting on the couch at night with a book open but unread in his lap. The man who used to quote love poems to me over brunch now barely makes eye contact. But it's not cruel. He isn't punishing me. That almost makes it worse. He's just withdrawing. And I see it. I feel it. Every day, I wonder if he's halfway out the door emotionally and waiting for me to follow. Or if he's hoping I'll reach for him before he stops hoping altogether. Last night, he came home late from parent-teacher conferences. I was curled up on the couch with a blanket and a show I wasn't watching. He stood in the doorway for a minute, watching me, and for the first time I didn't pretend not to notice. "You okay?" I asked, my voice hesitant. He gave a small nod. "Just tired." "Long night?" "Yeah." I wanted to say more. I wanted to ask how it felt to explain Civil War timelines to 12-year-olds while your marriage is quietly rotting at home. I wanted to tell him I miss him. That I hate the distance. That I hate how I caused it. But I didn't. He went to the bedroom and shut the door behind him. That soft, quiet shut again. And I sat there for what felt like hours, replaying everything. The dinner. My words. His silence. And then, worse, the way I'd warned Jules, my best friend, not to settle. As if I had some wisdom about love. As if I hadn't been slowly withdrawing from my own husband while pretending I was still in it. The irony hits me every time I think about it. I'd said it with such certainty, don't marry someone just because they're good to you. You'll wake up one day and feel like a liar. I hadn't even known Sam was in the next room. But now I wonder, did I really not know? Or did some part of me want to be heard? And the worst part? He's still being good to me. Even now. That coffee on the counter each morning. The trash cans taken out without a word. The soft way he moves around the apartment so he doesn't disturb me. He's not playing the heartbroken husband, he is him. And I miss him. I miss his laugh. His dumb history jokes. The way he used to lean against the kitchen island when I talked about work, genuinely listening. I miss feeling known. Wanted, not physically, not just that, but emotionally. Like someone had taken the time to memorize my mind. I want to reach for him. I do. But the fear is louder than the longing. What if it's too late? What if we've both become so polite in our sadness that we've forgotten how to be brave? Tonight, I sat on the edge of our bed while he showered. My hands were trembling. I stared at the bathroom door, steam curling out beneath it, and I asked myself a question I've been avoiding. Do I still want this? And for the first time in weeks, I heard the answer clearly. Yes. But not like this. The night it broke for good, it was raining. One of those low, steady rains that sounds more like a hum than a storm. Sam was grading essays at the dining table, his reading glasses halfway down his nose, a pen tapping against his coffee mug. I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching him. He looked older. Or maybe I was finally seeing the wear I'd put on him. "Can we talk?" I asked. He didn't flinch. Just capped his pen, closed the folder, and looked at me like he already knew this was coming. I sat across from him. "I miss you," I said softly. He gave a faint smile, not unkind, just tired. "I know. I've been thinking," I continued, "about how I've handled things. How I froze you out instead of telling you what I needed. And how I said something I can't take back." He rubbed his forehead with one hand, then looked at me, eyes dark with something I couldn't name. "You didn't lie, Mara. That's the thing. I believed you when you said you settled." I winced. That wasn't fair. It was honest. Silence opened between us again, but this time, it didn't feel like distance. It felt like space. A clearing. "I still love you," I whispered. "I know," he said, voice cracking slightly. "And I still love you. But love's not the problem. Is it?" I shook my head. He reached across the table and took my hand, gently, like I was something fragile. It was the first time he'd touched me in weeks, and the warmth of it brought tears to my eyes. Not from comfort, but from goodbye. "I don't think we're what each other needs anymore," he said, quiet and clear. And I think we've both known it for a long time. A part of me wanted to argue. To say, we can fix this. We can change. But we'd been changing for years, just not together. He stood and came around to my side of the table. I stood too, and he pulled me into a hug. Not tight. Not desperate. Just close. Familiar. I pressed my cheek against his chest and breathed him in. The clean cotton of his shirt. The warmth of his skin. I wanted to freeze that moment. Not to stay in it, but to remember what it felt like to be held by someone who once knew me completely. When we pulled apart, his eyes were wet. "I'll sleep on the couch tonight," he said. I didn't argue. Hours later, I walked past him in the dark. He was already asleep, curled on his side, one arm over his chest like he was holding something invisible. I stood there, watching the man I had once chosen, the man who had once chosen me, and felt my heart break without sound. We didn't fall out of love. We just stopped speaking the same language. And now, we're listening to the silence as it carries us gently in different directions. You never think your life will become the cautionary tale. That you will be the quiet voice your best friend hears in her head when she wonders whether to say yes to the proposal. But here I am. And here's the truth I didn't know how to say when it mattered: I loved Sam. God, I did love him. Not in some grand, movie script way, not like fire. More like warmth. Steady. Solid. The kind of love that remembers how you take your coffee and rubs your feet without asking. But somewhere along the way, that warmth became something else. Predictable. Expected. And maybe that's where I started to lose myself, not in his love, but in the quiet way I stopped showing up inside of it. What I've learned, what I'm still learning, is that there's a difference between being loved and being seen. Sam loved me deeply, but he didn't always see me. Not when I changed. Not when I shrank. Not when I reached for things I couldn't name out loud. And I didn't help him. I didn't give him a chance to see me clearly because I kept handing him the version of me I thought he wanted. Smiling. Grateful. Tired, but fine. Desire, I've realized, isn't about sex. Not at the root of it. It's about feeling wanted for who you are when you're not performing. It's about curiosity. About someone leaning in and saying, "You've changed, show me." We stopped asking each other who we were becoming. We just assumed we knew. And when the silence got loud, we covered it with effort. He brought home wine. Booked surprise dinners. Touched me like it meant something. But I couldn't feel it. Because it wasn't what I needed. I needed someone to ask me what I was scared of. To ask me what I was mourning. To sit in the mess with me, without trying to clean it up. Instead, I told my friend not to settle. Because deep down, I knew I had. Not for Sam, but for a version of myself that didn't want to cause conflict. For a love that looked good from the outside but felt like it had gone stale somewhere under the surface. The night he slept on the couch, I knew we weren't coming back from it. And still. That hug, the last one, it was real. It held 8 years. Inside jokes. Silent dinners. Crying in the car. First kisses. Morning coffees. It held all of it. And let it go. I used to think that love should last if it's real. But now I think the realest love is the one that tells the truth. Even when the truth is, we're not enough for each other anymore. Even when the truth breaks your heart. I've forgiven myself for that now. For needing more. For not knowing how to ask for it until it was too late. I still think about him. When I pass the school on my way to work. When I hear someone laugh the way he used to. When I reach for a mug in the morning and remember how he always left mine on the left side of the counter, handle facing me. He wasn't the wrong man. He just wasn't the whole answer. And I wasn't either, for him. If I could go back to that night with Jules, if I could unsay those words, I wouldn't. Because saying them was the first honest thing I'd done for myself in a long time. Sometimes you hurt the person who loved you most by becoming the person who finally loves yourself enough to leave. That's the part no one tells you. So don't settle. Not because the other person isn't good, but because your soul knows when it's being starved, and no amount of gentle kisses or thoughtful dinners can feed it. Choose the kind of love that looks you in the eyes when you start to disappear and says, I see you. Let's find you again, together. Or, if they can't, be brave enough to go looking on your own.